Hello world, Merry Christmas. I haven't made a YouTube video in a while because I've been posting on Instagram and stuff, but I just had one of the strangest conversations of my life. It's Christmas Eve and I wasn't with my family. I've got family in England. I'm not a complete loner, but I didn't want to go because I'm sick, so I don't want to get them all sick. So I was just on my own and I was like, okay, I'll just go walk around the city or something. Walk around the city, I see this guy with a guitar who's just all on his own. So I walk up to him and he looks a little strange. He's got this like scraggly beard. He's like 40 years old. And I ask him to play this song that's stuck in my head. He looks at me and he starts like shaking. He's like, no. And I was like, okay. And then I ended up talking to him for like 3 hours straight. And it was the craziest conversation I think I've ever had in my life. So he's this homeless dude who's off his nut on amphetamines. He says he was like, I take them every day, like every morning. I'll bomb some amphetamines, and if I don't have any, I feel like a corpse. And I was like, okay. And he's just basically like jittering the whole time he's talking to me, completely off his nut. And he was saying all this stuff like sometimes I have days where everything I touch turns to gold. I call it leprechaun mode. And I was like, okay, interesting. And he's like, I'm in my pre-wizard phase. I can't wait to grow old. I can't wait to grow a beard. I'm going to go gray. I'm in my pre-wizard phase and I'm going to be this wise elder. And like stuff like that. And he spoke in this way that's like kind of cryptic, but you know how gurus speak? He kind of gave off that aura. Anyway, what I found interesting is that he was loving life. Like he's not just a drug addict who was like on a high right then and there. He's like, no, I love life generally. I love this life I've chosen. I wouldn't have it any other way. And he was explaining his philosophy to me. And what he said to me was something that I've seen on children's shows, and I've also seen gurus say it in the East, meditation teachers and things like that. He seemed like he was explaining what King Bumi talks about in Avatar, Legend of Aang, where he talks about the types of jing.
I don't understand. Why didn't you free yourself? What's the matter with you, Bumi?
Listen to me, Aang. There are options in fighting called jing. It's a choice of how you direct your energy.
I know. There's positive jing when you're attacking and negative jing when you're retreating.
And neutral jing, when you do nothing.
There are 3 jings?
And this guy was explaining the neutral jing that never really made sense to me. It's this idea that if you just do nothing, things often turn out very well, and sometimes the best solution is to do nothing.
Neutral jing is the key. It involves listening and waiting for the right moment to strike.
He was like, the inward choice blocks the outward choice. He spoke in these riddles like that. And I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? He's like, it's a spiritual equation. The inward choice blocks the outward choice. I'm like, what do you mean spiritual equation? And he's like, struggle, 1 over struggle equals relevance. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And then he explained himself and it blew my fucking mind. Like, it just made so much sense. He said that if you're constantly trying to choose, then you don't see how things are just working for you. But once you release yourself from the burden of trying to choose and make a decision and choose the right path, and you just let everything be as it is and act spontaneously, or at least so you feel like you're acting spontaneously, then all the information that comes to you, everything that the universe presents to you, feels like it's happening for you. It's chosen for you by some mysterious being. Because how else are you going to interpret the fact that things just happen in your life. If you didn't cause them because you remove the volition, you remove that trying feeling, then the only other explanation is that fate or nature or God put that thing in your lap. So he was saying to me that, like, he lives in a shelter and he's like, they're trying to kick me out. And so what I do is I just wait for them to kick me out. I don't try find another place. I don't try to change my behavior. I just wait for them to kick me out. And when that happens, he's like, I'm actually finding that I now have more motivation to seek other options and change my behavior. So if you drop the struggle to do that, then for some strange reason that he called the spiritual equation, you actually end up creating what you would have been seeking in the first place. You create the thing that you drop seeking. And he said the spiritual equation is why this happens, because when you drop struggling, and he said the spiritual equation is 1 over struggle equals relevance, whatever you meant by relevance. He said that if you stop struggling, so the lower struggle goes, the higher relevance is, because it's an inverse relationship. I don't know how he knew all this stuff, because he's homeless, and he said he dropped out of school, and he said he got did terribly in school. But this is what I'm realizing. Some people are just really intelligent, even though they didn't go through the traditional education system. But he says, if you stop struggling, you release yourself from this attachment to making the decision, then everything becomes more relevant. What he meant by that is that when he, for example, goes, okay, I'm not going to make a decision, I'm going to walk around because there are people coming, I think I'm weird. When he, for example, stops the seeking of new places to stay, and he just goes, okay, I'm going to just let everything be, whether like my life turns to tatters or not. I'm just going to accept it as it is and act spontaneously rather than trying to force a particular outcome. He says, now I feel like whenever I have a desire to do something, whenever something comes up that is, tangentially related to a new place to stay, like an accommodation, maybe like, I don't know, someone says tenting's really fun, because he was talking about tenting instead of staying in a shelter. He says that information now feels like it's more relevant to me. It feels like more meaningful. It feels like it's appeared to me in this magical way because the universe has conspired to place it there. If I haven't done it, then what else has? You have to resort to the explanation that God put it there, or whatever runs the universe, this magical fate, whatever it is, you can place whatever word on it. Fate, nature, God, whatever, put it there. And that's a much more magical feeling, and he runs his life that way. And he says, I know he's homeless, so you might look at him and be like, oh, he's doing so poorly in life. But that's kind of just your regurgitation of societal standards and expectations. He says that he loves his life. He's enjoying it. He feels like it's magical. He says, I have everything I've wanted. He says, I talk to people who are working 9 to 5, and he says, I would never live that life because that doesn't inspire me. That doesn't excite me. That's not the life I want to live. I want to be free. And he was a little kooky, and he's not living a conventionally successful life. But maybe there's something to this idea. why have so many sages and gurus talked about this life without volition? Neutral Jing, as Bumi would say. And like, he did give me, he did remind me of King Bumi. The way he was fidgeting, the way his eyes moved, I thought that was mind-blowing. Because we're all on struggle street in the West. We're all trying to achieve something so intensely. It's such a strain, you know? It's such a strain. You're trying to improve. You're trying to be better every day. What if we were missing something? What if we did just operate out of this neutral Jing attitude more often? Makes me think about a lot of the stuff that I do, because I run a business that's about self-improvement. And what if I'm missing out on something? What if people would have a more full life if they knew how to disconnect from this continual struggle to improve, this fight against our circumstances? Anyway, that was my Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, everyone.